Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Energy Security Forum. This is the biggest and the crowning event in the cycle of more than 90 events held in 2022 by the Energy Club, which is the leading Ukraine's business community in the sphere of energy. And we are grateful to you for taking part. As you've been informed, due to the complicated situation with the energy supply in Ukraine, we won't be broadcasting this meeting, but it will appear on the YouTube channel of the Energy Club one day after it's been recorded. The forum partners are the Ukrainian Energy Exchange, Naida Geo-Invest LLC, Phoenix Contact LLC, also the government of Germany, because the event is supported by the German government as part of the project promoting energy efficiency and the implementation of the EU Energy Efficiency Directive in Ukraine, which is being implemented by the German government agency GIZ. I'd also like to draw your attention to the fact that on the 24th of November, there will be an auction in support of the armed forces of Ukraine, the Ukrainian Energy Exchange, the Association of Gas Traders of Ukraine, the All Ukrainian Energy Assembly, and the Energy Club business community will offer 4 exclusive lots for sale at this auction, and all the proceeds will be transferred to the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. We do not set the strict time limits for our discussion, the topic of which is the future of green energy in Ukraine, opportunities and roadmap for the introduction of guarantees of origin of green energy in Ukraine. But considering the number of participants, I would say that and the research of the audience, that 6 minutes is the best time span in this case. If you also want to maybe ask questions and give some closing remarks when we come to the successful completion of this session. Having said this, I invite for the speech Valerii Bezus. He's the head of the State Agency of Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving of Ukraine. Please go on.
Thank you, Andriy, and many thanks to Energy Club for this opportunity to discuss such an important issue on how to develop renewables in Ukraine. I'm sure that there is no reason to advocate the idea of development renewables, especially taking into account all of those challenges that we are facing now, and two general challenges of climate changes mitigation, decarbonization, and maybe issues with energy poverty. Now we are facing a huge challenge of energy security. And I'm sure that the renewables development is one of the key answers to this challenge. So hope we'll have a fruitful discussion about these matters. And have to underline and have to mention that the agency, as for today, is the governmental body responsible for policy implementation in the field of renewables development. But there are a lot of challenges in front of us on how to develop the right policies to support further development of renewables in Ukraine. Of course, we are looking forward to have the opportunity to restore our facilities, which now are going through this disruptive aggression, terroristic aggression from Russian Federation. I'm sure there is a huge potential and a huge, let's say, a lot of hidden forces that are waiting to start this process of restoration and further development of our facilities. Of course, again, there is a challenge on how to form the right policy to support the development of renewables in Ukraine. As you will know that there are a lot of issues on how we have developed the sector recent years. Despite having a lot of to be proud of, yeah, we have more than I guess up to 8 gigawatts of installed capacity of renewables during recent years. We have some issues on how to form the right scheme for supporting this development, how to make it balanced, how to make it reliable, and especially on how to make it affordable, and how to face the challenge of energy poverty, because, you know, we have a very nice and fruitful scheme. We had a very nice and fruitful scheme for supporting the development of renewables, but it caused a lot of troubles to our market, especially electricity market, if you say so. So we come to this idea of the model for supporting the renewables development by developing the scheme, the platform for guarantees of origin. Of course, this model, this scheme, is a very potent and very prospective model for supporting the development of renewables, because it looks like the very right idea to support the development of renewables from the sides of demand. And the agency, we've been working on developing the universal mechanism, the universal platform for guarantees of origin in Ukraine. We have some results in forming policy for guarantees of origin in the sphere of biomethane production, and it goes a little bit further than the guarantees of origin on the electricity for the electricity. But the general idea that we have been developing, that we need to use all the experience that countries already have in the sphere of development such mechanism for guarantees of origin, and develop this universal platform, which we can use not only for guarantees of origin for one kind of renewable energy, but to make it, as I have said, universal, make it usable, make it reliable, and I think the key idea to make it trustworthy, because I believe that there is no perspective for any mechanism for guarantees of origin without the absolute trust in its reliability. Of course, we need to avoid any potential risks of greenwashing and any other risks of any other manipulation in this process, especially when we are still in the process of providing the opportunity for Ukrainian producers, Ukrainian businesses in renewables to come out with their guarantees of origin and use them on the foreign markets, on the market of the EU. It's quite challenging for us because, as you might know, as for today, we cannot trade and cannot use our guarantees of origin to sell it at the European market. There are a lot of issues. I'm sure we will have the possibility and the opportunity to discuss on how to overcome those barriers. But what I believe that there is no way to overcome those barriers unlike we create the absolutely reliable and absolutely trustworthy mechanism for guarantees of origin. So these are the points that are important to mention at the beginning of our discussion. I hope we'll have the opportunity to go a bit deeply with all of these points. So welcome to the discussion. Let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Bezus, for mapping out the scope of this discussion and setting the tone of it. And now I gladly pass the mic to Naida Taso, who is the renewable energy expert from Energy Community Secretariat.
Thank you very much. Good morning or good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's a great pleasure to greet all of you on behalf of Energy Community Secretariat and Director Lyakh, who unfortunately could not join today's meeting, but who puts a lot of emphasis on the importance of guarantees of origin. I'm very happy we're talking about this, in particular in Ukraine, in particular in this current situation where unfortunately a lot of renewable projects are destroyed due to occupation of Russia, and there will be need for the recovery, and the recovery will hopefully be green and hopefully supported with the guarantees of origin. So guarantees of origin are not just obligation arising from Renewables Directive, which was adopted last year at the Ministerial Council in the Energy Community during the Ukrainian presidency. This is also a great opportunity to boost renewables and go beyond the current support schemes which we have in place in many contracting parties, including Ukraine. So Energy Community Secretariat recognized that. We also recognize that unfortunately in all our contracting parties, including Ukraine, there is no proper system in line with the EU standards and requirements in place. So this year we conducted regional project from January to June together with the service provider, which was selected during the public call we had last year. And I'm happy to say that also colleagues from the state agency actively participated in this project. So during the project, we developed 9 registries for the electricity in this case. However, they can be easily extended for other carriers as well. So 9 registries for all our contracting parties, including for the Ukraine. All registries are kept ready and will be ready until June 2023 for issuing bodies to sign direct agreement with the service provider, which is in our case Grexel, and start using these registries. This is a perfect opportunity for our contracting parties because there is a ready solution. So let's say there is no need to invest additional money, additional energy to create your own registry, which from the experience in the EU can be very complex. So we strongly recommend all issuing bodies to sign this agreement and start using the registries. I also have to emphasize that we had a bilateral call with the state agency and the service provider, and the service provider kindly offered to 1 year free of charge use of the registry for Ukraine due to current circumstances. And of course, we from the side of Energy Community Secretariat, we are happy to support you with any necessary secondary legislation which is needed to put this system in functioning in place in Ukraine. Also, Energy Community Secretariat have a signed agreement, MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the AIB, Association of Issuing Bodies, and I'm great to see Lukas here, representing EIB today. Hello, and looking forward to hear from you as well. So the goal of energy community is, of course, for our contracting parties to become part of the European scheme and system when the time comes. And that's why we are working closely with the EIB to support them in that regard. And that's why we also want to assure that whichever registry and the system is in place in energy communities fully aligned with the European standards and upcoming CEN standard. Also, what is important through the system developed by the energy community, contracting parties can trade guarantees of origin among each other until they start trading with the EU member states. I'm sure all of you are aware that at the moment there is a restriction in RED II directive, which does not allow or allows trade of guarantees of origin between EU member states and third countries only upon signing agreement with the European Union. This is something on what the energy community is also actively working, and we hope to support contracting parties to overcome this issue. But in the meantime, they can still trade guarantees of origin among contracting parties, and I believe this is very important to emphasize. So I'm happy to discuss further if there are any questions related to this system, but also obligations arising from RED II directive and other energy community acquis. So thank you very much for your time and looking forward to hear from other colleagues.
Thank you very much for sharing your time with us. And now you mentioned Mr. Groebke. He's with us, Lukas Groebke, the chair of the Association of Issuing Bodies. I invite him to speak.
Yes, thank you. Hello from Switzerland, and thank you for inviting me. So it's an honor to be here. My name is Lukas Groebke. I'm head of business development and member of the board at Pronovo. Pronovo is the issuing body for electricity geos in Switzerland. And as of 2025, we will also be issuing body for all energy carriers. So we will have a full disclosure system for all energy consumed in Switzerland. Switzerland is also a member of the EIB, and I've been a member at EIB, a board member at EIB for several years. And currently I'm also the chairman of the board. In Switzerland, we have introduced the geosystem already 15 years ago. And as I said, now we have a full disclosure system, which is compatible with all European countries. So for the presentation on EIB, I will share my screen. I've prepared some slides for you. So just a short start. To start off with the fundamental principle of a guarantees of origin. It's quite simple. It's three. It's book and claim, it's uniqueness, and it's immutability that is needed for a guarantee of origin. So electricity is physically not trackable. And to track the quality flows, we meter the produced electricity at the source, at the production plant, and then we know where it comes from, which quality is. We issue the guarantees of origin, so that's the book. These can be traded separately from the physical flow. And what is crucial at the end, once we deliver the electricity to the end consumers, the geos have to be booked out or claimed from the guarantee of origin system, so cancelled, to prove the quality of the electricity delivered to the end consumer. That's the first principle. The second is uniqueness. In Switzerland, for example, we have full disclosure. We issue geos for every produced kilowatt hours, no matter whether it's renewable or non-renewable. And on this consumption side, we issue, we cancel guarantees of origin for every electricity, kilowatt hour of electricity to deliver to the end consumer. So that means in Switzerland, we can track every kilowatt hours or each kilowatt hour from the production plant to the end consumer. That only works if we have just one issuing body per country, one database per country, and 1 kilowatt hours of guarantee of origin, or one certificate per kilowatt hour of electricity issued. So that's the fundamental principle. So now it's not only electricity consumed in Switzerland that is produced in Switzerland. We, of course, also export electricity and we import electricity. And what happens then with the guarantees of origin? Once we, with the quality that we export, once we export electricity, we book the geo out of our system, we transfer it to the other country, they book it into their system, and then they can track further the quality of the electricity within their domain. Once we import it, we do it vice versa. We book it out of the foreign system, we import the electricity with the geo and we book it into our system, and then we can track the foreign electricity in our system. So now the question is, how is it guaranteed that the geo imported to Switzerland is not or at the same time claimed also in the other country, so that the electricity is claimed in Switzerland as being renewable and also in the other country. So that would be a double counting that has to be avoided. And that's where AIB comes into the game. And AIB is the association of the issuing bodies of the European countries, or almost all of the European countries, not all of them yet. And in 2009, the former RED Renewable Directive, it was regulated that each European country has to have, shall have only one issuing body and one database for issuing of guarantees of origin. So that guarantees in principle this uniqueness within the countries. And now what is AIB doing? AIB is operating the standard for the that enables the exchange of guarantees of origin with these basic principles among the AIB members. So that's the EEC standard. And in order to comply to the EEC standard, you have to fulfill three things. One is you have to have the regulatory framework that is compatible with the RED II directive. Switzerland is also not a member of the EU, but we have a legislation that's compatible with this. Then you have to have the processes that ensure this uniqueness. So you have to do plant audits, you have to audit production data, and you have to have the to make sure that what is metered that at the plant to issue the guarantees of origin is really correct. And finally, you have to have a database to operate the system. And if a country fulfills all these requirements, it can apply for becoming a member of the AIB. The country is then audited by the AIB and everything is fulfilled. The general meeting can agree on including this country as a member of the AIB. And from then on, you have the possibility to exchange your geos with the other European countries being a member of the AIB. And that brings to the second reason why AIB exists. AIB also operates IT infrastructure, so the central hub. And the central hub connects all the European registry together via this central hub. So that makes sure that once you export a geo, it's booked out of your system, it's transferred via the hub to the other country and booked into their system to guarantee this uniqueness of guarantees of origin. And currently we have 27 countries as members in the AIB. To make it clear, it's not an EU standard, it's a de facto EU standard, but it's a European standard. So to become a member of the AIB, you don't have to be a member of the EU. We're also not a member of the EU as Switzerland, but you have to be a member of the EFTA, of the European Economic Area, or of the energy community, which is the case for the Ukraine. So, and recently the board decided of the AIB to welcome the Ukraine as an observer at AIB as of next year. So welcome to AIB. Then, yes, how is the compatibility of these guarantees of origin assured? Just some points to it, to mention to it. So for example, we take Switzerland as an example. The first and most important thing, that guarantees of origin are purely electronically. It's not a physical document. We also print physical documents when we cancel a GEO, but it's just a receipt. So that's one thing that guarantees that a GEO exists only once. That's first thing. And the second thing is then the legislation. As I already mentioned, in Switzerland, we have a legislation that is compatible with the EU directive. This guarantees that there's only one issuing body and one database. So with all this, we fulfill the requirements of the AIB regarding uniqueness. And thus, this as guarantees of origin are based on the Swiss legislation and on the X standard. This guarantees that Swiss GEOs can be used in Switzerland for the specific purposes, but also exported to other European countries and used there for their purpose. And that enables the international compatibility. So in principle, a Swiss GEO, for example, that would be the same for Ukraine, of course, is also an X GEO and therefore can be used in European countries. And an X GEO is also compatible with a Swiss GEO, and therefore they can use it in Switzerland for different purposes. That guarantees the compatibility. Some words to the turnover at AIB. There are many or a lot of GEOs transferred within AIB. In total, it's 700 or up to 1,000 terawatt hours per year. And here you see the net importers and the net exporters. So the net importers, yes, it's Germany, as you can see, it's Netherlands or different other countries. And the biggest net exporters are, yes, no surprise, Norway, Italy, Sweden, and so on. So that you can see. So there's a lot of traffic going on within Europe regarding guarantees of origin. How is AIB organized? We have the general meeting, that's the decision part of the organization. That we have representatives of each country in there. We meet every twice a year and decide on the strategy, on the budget, and of major changes on the articles and on the standard. Then we have the board. The board creates the strategy for the general meeting and also the budget and major organizational changes. Then we have two screens, the working groups. We have two scheme groups. AIB not only operates an electricity scheme, but also a gas scheme. In principle, it's the same certificate, each certificate with different energy carriers behind. So it's still the principle one certificate per energy unit, which is issued no matter what carriers behind. And then you see the type of energy, of course, on the GEO. But we have different groups because in some countries we have issuing bodies for both, for electricity and gas, and some countries where it's only gas or electricity. And therefore they have different interests, different budgets, different voting rights. Therefore we have separated this. But there, along with this, the kind of horizontal groups come into the game. So we have also the X unit. It's the group that defines the basis for the standard, so that the electricity GEOs and the gas GEOs base on the same principal certificate. So that's guaranteed by the X unit or defined by the X unit. Then we have the information system unit that is responsible for the IT infrastructure, that's also be suitable for both schemes. And communication and public affairs, it's responsible for the communication, but also for helping new members to get on board of the AIB. So if you want to be a member, you can contact the AIB and then we will help you to onboard you into the organization. And that makes us complete. So that's the standard. So for the future and especially under the new directive, we want not only to have one GEO for electricity, but for all energy carriers, so that we can also support the mechanism of energy conversion in the future, which is important when we are talking about power to gas or vice versa, and also make crossover the energy carriers possible to avoid double counting and guarantee the transparency to our end consumers. And final slide, how is the board structures structures. We have two parts in the board. We have the operational board. There we have representatives for the operational groups or units. So one for the electricity scheme group, one for the gas scheme group, then one for the external affairs unit, so communication unit, and one for the information system unit. And then we have 3 strategic board members, more focused on the strategy, the vice chair and vice treasurer. This is currently vacant. And then we have the treasurer and the chairman of the board. And here you can see who it is. So for electricity, it's Germany. For the IT, it's Lithuania. For gas, it's Belgium. For external affairs, it's Portugal. For treasurer, for finance, it's the Netherlands. And currently the chair is at Switzerland. And the Secretariat General is operated by Lisbeth Zwitten. She's the Secretary General and located in Belgium. So, yes, having said that, let's move forward together, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Groebke. That's quite a scope of work that you're doing. Could you please stop sharing the screen? Yes, thank you very much. And now the floor goes to Jane Dennett-Thorpe, who is the Deputy Director for Decarbonisation and Energy Transition at Ofgem.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today with these in these difficult times. I'll just go to share my screen. I'll give a short presentation. I'm going to take a slightly higher level, not only talking about REGOs, but also just to think about what actually has been achieved within in United Kingdom and within Great Britain, and how we've managed to achieve that. So in the last 3 decades, we have substantially shifted off of coal. So what we see on the left is really our coal consumption. And you see there's a couple of periods where actually the decrease was extremely sharp and extremely rapid. The first occasion was when we moved from taking our power plants off of coal onto gas, and the second when we are shifting to renewables. And you'll see actually that shift to renewables from 2010 onwards has been extremely, extremely rapid. On the right-hand side, we see the same. It's actually the production of electricity, and you'll see this kind of, firstly you'll see the green chunk growing, which is when we moved from coal to gas, and then on the right hand side, now in this slide it doesn't look particularly dramatic, but if you combine the very usefully coloured yellow and blue slithers, you see actually there's a really quite phenomenal increase since 2010. So, and how have we done this? I think that's kind of the critical thing here. So what I've got on the bottom slide here is really just the electricity production. Again, what you see is happening is that the gas, which is the blue and red, is coming off, but this really rapid ramping up, particularly from 2010 onwards, of the renewables in the yellow at the bottom. So our main kind of policy drivers have been set up over this period. Obviously, Great Britain has been a long time proponent of taking action on climate change. And in 2002, we set up a subsidy scheme aimed at electricity generators to generate from renewables. This was called the Renewable Obligation Certificate, and that happened in 2002 and continued on until around 2014, 17, depending on how you count, between having applied for the certificate and building the infrastructure. That during that period, that was extremely successful. It enabled certainly more than a doubling, I believe, something like a quadrupling or a sixfold increase in the renewable capacity that was brought online. However, in the early sort of 2010s, we undertook electricity market review to actually change the way that that subsidy was flowing from an upside subsidy to one that recognised that actually in the future gas might be more expensive than renewables, and renewables might be cheaper than gas, which is obviously what has indeed happened this year as a result of the actions in Russia and Ukraine. So that change, however, was to recognise that that in order to get that long-term investment, there still needed to be some mechanisms in place to deliver that renewable infrastructure. And so from 2014 onwards, we've actually seen this huge continued increase in renewables. Last year, there was 2 gigawatts of offshore wind that was brought online. And there's an ambition from the UK government, which we're intending to fulfill, of 40 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2040. So a still increase in accelerating pace of delivering renewables, really underpinned at the moment by contracts for difference. I should say we're also reviewing whether or not we need to change that for the situation that we find ourselves in. So what you see is that we've changed our subsidy regime, or our kind of market support regime. Actually, it's shifted from a subsidy regime to a kind of market support. How do we best enable and support that market to deliver what we want, particularly as the cost of renewables has dropped. It's dropped significantly, both on solar and wind, and more than a 6-fold decrease in prices, and making it cost competitive with gas. So how do we make sure that the market is giving us both what we need, and now looking to the future in the right places at the right times? That's the key question for the future. I think in the context of this conversation, I will say that actually our view is that REGOs haven't driven that renewables development. What has driven it is these generation-focused regimes, either direct subsidy or the kind of market mechanisms of CFD and their potential subsequent followers. Since Brexit, since the UK left the EU, the REGOs from the UK have not been recognised in Europe, and the government have said that from April 23, we'll also not be recognising guarantees of origin from Europe. I mean, we will be, with this conversations ongoing about electricity market trading arrangements. That's very important. It's very important to all of us. But certificates are not really a key part of that, and we're not seeing those as a key driver in our development of renewables. So, and I think this was mentioned right at the start. What is the role of pulling the subsidies on the consumer and supplier side versus really focusing on the generator? To what extent do we expect the pull from the suppliers or the consumers to really pull through that generating capacity, or do we actually think that what we need to focus on is the arrangement around getting that generators in place? And if we do think that the pull is coming from the supplier or consumer side, what do we need to put in place? Really, what are our assumptions around that, and where that demand is coming from, and the requirements there? Now, in the context of GB, we've not felt that supply side, that consumer side, that demand side pull was big enough to pull it through. And I mean, you can see this in the relative prices of REGOs versus the prices that have been supplied directly in support. So I just wanted finally to reflect on, how have we achieved this? And I think, having a clear and a believable goal based on consensus and a believable trajectory in the UK is really underpinned by cross-party support, by legislative act saying that we will hit a 2050 target, and we will have 5-year carbon budgets that we will need to meet, that the government of the day will need to meet in order to reach that 2050 goal. And I think that cross-party consensus and that clear goal is really what is driving and has continued to drive action in the UK. And then underneath that, we've had different tools for different times, and that reflects the kind of both the falling prices of renewables and the wider policy framework. But it's not like a right tool. There are different tools for different times. But we do think that for us, the heavy lifting has really been done by those generator-focused subsidies or market mechanisms, not by REGOs. we recognise that the cross-border market alignment is really critical, really important for all of us, and it needs agreement on the relevant rules, whichever ones are relevant in the circumstances for the market players, and that needs to be underpinned by trust. Ofgem has had a role and continues to have a role in being the issuer of REGOs into the GB market, and making sure that the rules are followed and that those certificates are trustworthy. But that kind of is in this wider context that I've just sketched out. We'd be happy to talk about any of our learnings in more detail at another moment. Thank you.
An interesting and useful presentation indeed. The next person whom we are going to hear from is Maria Teresa None Domingo. She's the Director of Development of the Gas System at Enagas. Is Ms. Domingo with us? No, not at the moment. Okay, we'll skip, and if she and MP Huncharenko join us, they will be given floor. And now I see that Oleg Dobrovolsky has also, yes, he is here. He's here, Mr. Dobrovolsky. Hello. He's the Regional Director for the International REC Standard Foundation.
Hello, I'm gonna share my screen right away. Just please give me feedback if you can see the presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, wonderful. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to participate in this discussion, and it's a particular exciting topic to see gaining traction in Ukraine, because I personally believe it's a very underused resource at the moment that Ukraine can benefit from. And this is what actually my presentation will be focused on. Before we get into details, just a small note, and colleagues from AIB already and Ofgem already gave an introduction on the guarantee of origin, or a certificate, renewable energy certificate already, so I won't be going into the details of the mechanism itself. I do want to note a small note that you can see on the right side at the bottom here, that guarantees of origin or renewable energy certificates, which is the same name, which is the name for the same instrument, are not only tools for end user claims, but they're also tools in a way to report decreased carbon footprint. And that note would be more important for the later part of my presentation and for the perspective there. I do work for the International Renewable Energy Certificate Standard Foundation, which is a non-profit based in the Netherlands that works with the governments, local stakeholders, and local entities around the world, consulting them and advising them on implementing the markets for renewable energy certificates. And how do these markets look like today? Well, this is a more comprehensive global map where you can clearly see there's a bit of segmentation going on, as North American REC market is seen as one separate part with the national REC system. Then, of course, the European Guarantee of Origin market under the EU rules. And on the rest of the map, as you can see, is the organization that I represent, the IREC standard, which is basically the biggest block of countries outside of EU and North America, representing countries that implement a single standard applicable to renewable energy certificate. Our partners in the countries of presence include the Ministry of Energy of Dubai, the Department of Energy of Abu Dhabi, the transmission operator of Thailand, and the Energy Authority of Malaysia. We work with different entities around the world to implement these markets and help these markets work properly. A qualification which allows me to speak from the experience from the market is shown in the red here. This year to date, we have already certified beyond 160 terawatt hours of renewable energy under the IREC standard, and we are on track to match the size of the whole North American voluntary market by the end of this year. But I'm not here to talk about our work in detail. I'm here to share the knowledge that we gained in the markets, and I'm here to share what I believe is a valuable perspective for Ukraine for today. We do get same lessons in all of the 50 markets around the world that we operate in, and that is definitely the benefit of standardization. Standardization helps the end users to navigate the space of certificates, and it helps increase demand for the certificates in countries. It allows to gain unified acceptance among relevant reporting frameworks, such as CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project, or Greenhouse Gas Protocol as the single biggest carbon accounting standard globally. And the lesson that goes as a red line for all the markets is that it's all about not reinventing the wheel, because all of the best practices, and this is what we are committed to. We are committed to help countries implement the best practices in renewable energy certificate markets that already exist, to implement them by learning from the existing markets, from the existing standards. Coming back to guarantees of origin, and just to clear out all the confusion that may be around the names, guarantees of origin is the name for renewable energy certificates under the set of defined rules in EU. They are known as RECs in North America, or under our standard as IRECs. The challenge that has already been mentioned here in the implementation and the focus of the implementing guarantees of origin in Ukraine is indeed the current legal framework, particularly the RED II directive that clearly poses a huge barrier for any kind of certificates from Ukraine being accepted in the European market. And the existing examples, and I'm echoing again other speakers right now, actually include the United Kingdom, Switzerland, or for example in the Balkans, Serbia, that have their GO systems but have a challenge with the recognition under the EU market. A big misconception that I hope will be cleared more and more is that neither establishing a GO system while following the EU standards to the rule, neither the joining to the AIB hub would automatically mean the acceptance of Ukrainian GOs in the EU GO market. Unfortunately, that's a quite common misconception in the industry in Ukraine, and I think it would be very beneficial that all of the stakeholders are aware of that. The EU market is developed market, but also quite a complex market. So there are also market considerations with a scenario when Ukraine joins the certificate market as well. And of course, there's always a challenge for any country implementing a national certificate scheme to then get it approved by existing standards of reporting and to be implemented inside those reporting frameworks. But my main message today here is that there is a different perspective to implementing renewable energy certificates in Ukraine. It is seeing them as a tool, and we're coming to the first slide, as a reporting tool, as a tool to decrease the carbon footprint emissions of the end products or of the end consumers. On the slide, you can see the framework for GHG protocol that defines scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions for end consumers. And certificates, guarantees of origin, are a tool to decrease the carbon footprint. And for Ukraine, that would mean that Ukrainian goods, Ukrainian commodities could possibly become more competitive in the global scene, that Ukraine can mitigate the carbon risks coming from different carbon tax implemented in different countries. And it is quite important because while Ukraine is fighting a war, Ukrainian economy is still alive. And by October of this year, the Ukrainian State Customs reported that Ukraine has exported $33 billion worth of exports, to different countries around the world. So the potential increase of value of these exports is a great benefit that can be brought by the renewable energy certificate or by guarantee of origin. This is a more practical example of what I'm talking about, which outlines the example of aluminum being produced in Emirates, and in which production the renewable energy has been used and certified by renewable energy certificates, basically allowing for the aluminum producer to gain a market premium on the aluminum that was sold to BMW, who has been buying renewably produced metals as a bet to hedge against carbon footprint of their goods. It's a quick reflection on the points of this conversation. So for me, it's very clear that guarantees of origin in the Ukrainian recovery is a tool to be understood, implemented, and promoted to have the immediate and long-term benefit for the Ukrainian economy. It will be and has all of the potential to become a strong incentive to producers as a market-based support instrument, but it has to be driven by the adoption of the benefits by end consumers. And of course, it is challenging currently to speak about the export of energy to EU and the usage of guarantees of origin alongside, but I do encourage all of the participants of the conversation to think about exporting the green energy from Ukraine through the commodities, through the goods that Ukraine produces itself, and which carbon footprint can be lowered with the use of this tool. The stakeholders in Ukraine should definitely focus on the immediate benefits of implementing the certificates for the Ukrainian economy. They should be using the existing standards and frameworks to gain advantage as soon as possible and engage the end consumers and producers to inform and educate them on what certificates mean for them as a tool. Thank you very much.
Impressive, clear cut, hangs together very well. And with this, we go further to Killian Daly, who is the General Manager of EnergyTag.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone for the great presentations. So I'm here to talk about a topic maybe around more innovation in the space of guarantees of origin and certification in general. And it's about 24/7 electricity, clean electricity supply, and how that can be enabled with granular certificates or granular guarantees of origin, and potentially something to think about from day one if you're setting up your geo system in Ukraine, to think about the time aspect also of this. So, something I always like to start with is, there's a massive increase in consumer demand for clean energy. We see this, obviously in Europe through the great work of the AIB. An enormous amount of electricity is now tracked on the AIB network, 800 terawatt hours, I think, or more even. So it's like 30% of EU's electricity. So there's growing demand for this. And of course, we know that things like renewable PPAs have been growing very, very fast in demand also in the last number of years around the world. So there's a lot of money coming from consumers going into the development of clean energy. But there's one thing that can be improved in our view. It's that also more of this money goes into storage and flexibility and other clean but firm technologies that help basically fill in the gaps of renewable energy intermittency. So this is a lot of what we are focused on. And granular certificates or granular guarantees of origin, they basically enable 24/7 tracking of electricity. So usually today, electricity is tracked on a monthly or annual basis using guarantees of origin. Granular guarantees of origin will have a timestamp so that you will know exactly when your electricity was produced or released from storage indeed. And this enables companies to have a 24/7 clean electricity target on a voluntary basis, so they can ensure that they're delivering clean supply every hour of the year. Or it can be used by regulators to ensure that a product is clean every hour of the year. For example, in certain cases, this might be useful for things like hydrogen. So this is what is enabled by these mechanisms. And one thing to note, just this is to give a kind of a concrete example. It's an example from a data center, a Google data center, showing the supply from their energy contract, their green energy contract. So we see, and the demand obviously is just the dark base load profile also on the graphic. And we see obviously many times when there's no sun and wind that there's gaps in the supply, and this gap is generally filled by fossil generation, whereas granular certificates would allow a company to fill in all of these gaps with clean energy supply to make sure that every hour they're not relying on a fossil source to supply their electricity. And this is important for incentivizing storage, flexibility, etc., through clean energy contracts. So granular certificates give a more complete picture. So you know here on the left with the today's standard certificate, you do know exactly what month your energy was produced, but you don't know exactly the availability per hour. And we think this is really important to give you that full picture. And that's what EnergyTag does. So EnergyTag is a non-profit movement bringing together over 500 organizations to define this instrument, this granular certificate, and enable the next generation of clean energy markets. And that comes with a number of advantages. You have an hourly price for renewables and clean energy. You incentivize storage and flexibility. And ultimately, you can deliver 24/7 carbon-free energy, which is not currently possible with monthly or annual certification schemes. And these conclusions are based on analysis from the likes of ENTSO-E, so the European System Operators, Princeton University, and Technical University of Berlin. So EnergyTag worked on three things. We've developed a standard for granular certificates, which is accepted by many organizations around the world, including the United Nations Energy. We have 12 pilot projects now showing this technology, that it works and it's scaling. And also we work on a number of policy topics, in particular the updated Renewable Energy Directive in Europe and the European Union's hydrogen laws, which both have implications for 24/7, which I can talk about more as we go through. And these are some of the organizations that supported our standard. So we're really happy to have a lot of Europe's big electricity suppliers, a lot of big consumers, and other companies around the world supporting our effort and movements to have more granular energy certification. And this has growing support. So the United Nations has a compact for 24/7 to encourage companies now to make 24/7 goals. Google and Microsoft, as you see, they've done this by 2030, and we hope to have many more joining this movement over the coming months and years. The United States has set a goal for half of its electricity to be 24/7 matched by 2030. So the US government is the biggest buyer of electricity in the world. So this is a really important signal that they're looking to match their clean supply on an hourly basis more and more. And they've launched an RFI on that recently. And ENTSO-E, so the European System Operators, have a position paper calling strongly for more time-based and local electricity procurement that can help the grid ultimately to balance every hour of the year as well with clean energy, which is the ultimate goal here. We have a number of projects ongoing with some big organizations around the world who are working on hourly tracking. I can share these slides after. I won't go into the details of all of the projects, but there's a lot going on here. This is happening. There's many organizations actively working on this as they see the advantages of moving towards more hourly certification going forward. And especially, in countries like Denmark, where they have already very high amounts of wind and sun. Their problem now is storage and flexibility. That's what they need to get to 100% clean energy. And that's why these types of systems are so important for the transmission system operator in Denmark, Energinet. Just a word on the Renewable Energy Directive in Europe. So obviously RED 2 is now in place for a number of years. RED 3 is in the process of going through final negotiations, so that will be ended probably at the end of this year. And the European Parliament in September did propose a position to update the Guarantee of Origin and to allow countries, if they wish, to issue granular guarantees of origin. So this would be a major move forward. Currently, it's these final trilogue negotiations are ongoing. But we think there's a very good probability that granular guarantees of origin will be included in the Renewable Energy Directive 3 So countries can start to issue these on a voluntary basis, and would be a major, obviously, innovation and move forward for this 24/7 movement, and also a way of future-proofing the system for countries who are looking to start on these on their journey of guarantees of origin now. Just one final piece of analysis to show the benefits here. So Princeton University in the United States, they did a modeling to see how important is it to do 24/7 or hourly matching compared to annual matching for green hydrogen, because the US government is going to be subsidizing heavily the hydrogen sector, and they want to make sure that it delivers emissions benefits. And it's quite stark, in fact. So if you have hydrogen electrolysis that is hourly matched, then you have very low emissions, as you see here, very, very low carbon emissions. If you do annual matching, then the emissions can actually be worse than grey hydrogen from green hydrogen. So it's really important to think of the source of electricity if we're giving subsidies to hydrogen, and making sure it's clean all the time. Otherwise, we're calling on fossil units, gas turbines to actually produce that electricity, which makes that hydrogen highly carbon intensive. And that's why the European Commission has proposed a 24/7 approach for green hydrogen in Europe in their draft rules published in May, and that is in the process of final negotiation. So let's see if that rule is still applied once they ultimately decide on the final rules, but that's certainly their intention for now. So that's it from me. It's just to kind of raise this topic and maybe have you all think about that a little bit as well as you think about designing your certification system, that this is coming in many parts of the world, and it's an innovative topic to keep in mind. If you want to learn more, please go to our website and sign up. We have a newsletter, we have working groups, and everyone is welcome to join that. There's no cost involved.
Thank you very much for your time, and by the way, for caring about our time, because you managed to pack a lot of information within a relatively short span. As we speak, there are air alert sirens blaring out in Kyiv and other places in Ukraine because Russian strategic bombers are airborne. So we speak of the future, and this is reassuring, but still we have to be attentive time-wise. Okay, who's next? And the next is Nadiya Petruchenko. She's head of the SPP Development Ukraine.
Good afternoon, dear. I'm happy to be here, and primarily I would like to say thank you for Energy Club. It's our pleasure to be participant. It's such a useful and important forum. And we are from business side, and I would like to share a business opinion for the role of guarantees of energy original in the recovery of Ukraine. Our company as a developer, and as a developer, we implement the most advantageous projects in the field of renewables energy in Ukraine. At the same time, we are, as an APC company, we have already built largest number of generating facility, power lines, and up substation in Ukraine. As a leader developer in Ukraine, we develop step up the art projects. And these projects attract stronger investors through their technology and engineering solutions. And we really know the expectation and the difficulties faced by investors who wants to invest in Ukraine. The issues of the regional of electricity has been an agenda a long time and is acute. Certainly, it should be emphasized that government authorities have already done a lot for implement such guarantees, but we're still in process. And now work is being done to prepare the recovery of Ukraine and our entire energy system after our victory. And we are speaking regarding the recovery. With this regards, we should understand that, yes, for sure, introduction of guarantees of regional will not only bring Ukraine closer to the following part of development, the European Union, but also allow attracting new investment, deepen trade relations, increasing transparency in the energy sectors, developing new generating capacities, decarbonization the Ukrainian economy. Earlier in Ukraine, roadmap for the implementation of guarantees of regional was present. And it showed that we need near 2.5 years to endorse guarantees of regional. For sure, it is, and our colleagues already mentioned the same just today, there is so much to be done to create an electricity register system development, huge number of legislation act, normative act. But nevertheless, if we base it on today's situation, and if we are looking for such issues from the recovery point of view, it is necessary to emphasize that today we cannot afford to implement so significant issues for the economy for so long. And you know that we are in Ukraine, and we know that our heroes, our farms, they are showing incredible result at the front. Result that at first no one from the world community believed it. And they achieved these goals at the cost of their life. And we believe that work of the regulation framework and legislation should go faster. And everyone from us should make all efforts to this end. And we are obliged to provide Ukrainians with quick recovery after our victory. And we are obliged to ensure the future development of Ukraine does not get down the long bureaucratic procedure. You know that I would like to mention the most crucial view from the business side. And we consider that it's really important that we understand that we need to attract huge amount of investment. But unfortunately, the victory will not enough for us. We must create the conditions for the investors. And these conditions should be most attractable and advanced. As the guarantees of the original of electricity, it's not just follow up the global tendency. It is the investment for the future of our country economy. We, from a business side and our company as a developer, we will create, and we are working right now for the solid and reliable projects. And what we need to do together with all energy community in Ukraine is create the conditions for investors. And only after that, if we will speed up our process, our company will become at the ahead. And we really do our best, and we happy for this discussion. And we consider that next year and our next community year, we will do our best in order to speed up all procedure and to really implement the guarantee of regional in Ukraine. And thank you for your time and for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Petruchenko, for what you said and for how you said it. The next to speak, Svitlana Chekunova, I don't see her among our participants, but Yana Lyakh is with us. She's head of energy at Unicorn Systems UA LLC, and we are impatiently waiting for her contribution.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me share my screen. So originally, I intended to speak a bit about the steps which we actually need to be closer to the European market, but all of them have already been mentioned by the participants of the session. So I would like to shortly rearrange my presentation and make it a bit shorter to summarize everything that has been said. So I will start a bit with our introduction, why we are here and why we think that we can put our 5 cents to the general conversation about the guarantees of origin of Ukraine in Ukraine, because Unicorn is the long-term software provider for a European energy market. We have been active in many fields, and one of them is the transition to the green energy. We are the developers of the Statnett SF, which is a Norwegian certificate registry, the biggest in Europe. We have also provided the solution for Swedish Energy Agency to cover the heating certificates, and we're the provider of Groebke. From the pan-European side, we are the developers of the AAB Hub solution, which has been active and has been developing for many years. And we have even had the first project with the granular certificates, which was already mentioned by my colleague from the EnergyTag. So generally, we try to be on track with all the latest trends and support you with our systems in this energy transition. I'm going to skip a couple of slides and focus on the general tendencies that we see in the energy certificates market in Europe and around the world. And I'm going to try to also provide a couple of our thoughts or observations how they can actually be implemented in Ukraine. So just a couple of general words of what we see going on in Ukraine. I think that Oleg Dobrovolsky was exactly right when he summarized the current situation in Ukraine. Whether we like it or not, but Ukraine on the end customer side is not as interested in consuming green energy as the Europe does, for example. But we see the enormous interest in procurement of the green energy that can be proven to be green by the industry. It is the metallurgy, it's the agriculture which actually needs these certificates to be competitive in the European market. And given that the current situation actually brings our prices a bit lower compared to what they have been in other currencies, this introduction of guarantees of origin could really help our producers be even more competitive in Europe and around the world, which I think that one of the more serious steps that should be considered. And second, that I wanted to underline is that Ukraine's infrastructure has suffered a lot from the Russian attacks. And I think that we already understand the fact that it's going to be renewed almost from the scratch after the war, which is not only bad because we are facing the constant outages, but it also opens the door for the opportunities for Ukraine to be the unintentional sandbox for the different solutions and approaches that are currently being discussed in the energy market, but they are not yet there, I would say. So let's focus on the tendencies that we see, and particularly how we think Ukraine can benefit from them and can be kind of the sandbox for the different types of solutions. And by being the sandbox to be more interesting for Europe itself, to just test some of the solutions on us. So the current trend that we see is, of course, the shorter time periods for the certificates. This is being mentioned, the initiative from EnergyTag for granular certificates, which we already have the pilot project that we have mentioned. So I believe that we have a couple of industrial groups or agricultural groups which can actually be the basis for testing such certificates in Ukraine when they have their own production, when they have their own consumption, and it's quite easy to track those certificates within one group. So that's one of the points which we think Ukraine can can at least try. So guys from EnergyTag, if you want to run another pilot project in Ukraine, we're in. Second, we see that there is the tendency to have this smaller granularity of certificates on the market, from megawatt hours to kilowatt hours. The third tendency that we see is the general interest in the market in the full disclosure of the information about the energy sources that were used to produce the electricity. We know that some of those initiatives are already running in Ukraine. For example, the Guaranteed Buyer, which is the state association, constantly keeps track on the fuel mix which is being used to generate the electricity. And after the war, I think that it would be really beneficial to extend those tracking mechanisms to actually involve, to consume more information from the market and generally apply more information for the guarantees of origin. It might be interesting for the trading as well, because we see that there are current talks in Europe that, for example, it would be better to have the energy certificates produced closer to the place where they are actually produced. We see even more interest for that in the US market, based on my conversations with them. So the local traders often get the requests, for example, for the wind certificates which were generated in the east of Canada, or for example, the solar certificates which were generated precisely in some community, and so on and so forth. So this is, I believe, one of the information which we can start gathering in Ukraine and use it actively for the trading and actively for generation of green certificates. And that would be one of the like newer trends in the market which we can implement here. Fourth tendency is kind of connected with the fifth, that there is a general tendency to have green certificates not only for the electricity but also for more energy sources, for carbon offsets, biomethane, hydrogen, and so on and so forth. And speaking of which, you know that we constantly work with the World Bank and the different financial institutions to reorganize our energy system. There's one particular project that I'm thinking about in Ukraine, is the project for Ukrhydroenergo, which should be financed from the World Bank. And it focuses on building the grid-scale energy storages and possibly even the mining farms near the Ukrainian hydro stations, which we have a lot in Ukraine. And this could be one of the great pilot projects to understand and test in real life how the energy certificates can work with the energy storages, how we can ensure that the electricity which is stored and later provided to the grid from the energy storage is actually green. And the fifth trend which we see is connecting the green energy with the transportation, with electrical vehicles, to make sure that the electricity which is consumed or given back to the grid by the energy storages is actually green. We have one proof of concept currently going on the basis of Göteborg, because we, as Unicorn, we operate all their municipal power stations, and at the moment we are trying to understand how those municipal power stations can be used as the source of the flexibility, and how we can connect them directly with the green certificates consumed for electrical vehicles charging. To summarize everything, we see the multiple really high-tech trends going on in the market of the green energy, both in Europe, in the United States, and around the world. And we think that all those trends can be used after the war to Ukraine benefit, to try to be the actual sandbox, to test the tendencies going on in the market, to understand what works, and to bring us one step closer to the European market in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lyakh, for this well thought through and well presented intervention. Now that I look at the screen closer, I deduce that the person who's hidden behind the pseudonym Lana's phone may be Svitlana Chekunova. Am I right?
Yes,
So
it's me. And
this is Svitlana Chekunova. Very good.
Thank you very much for your invitation to this very professional discussion. And I'm sorry I couldn't do it from my laptop, so you have to tolerate me through my iPhone. Just to say a few words about revitalization of Ukraine and specifically through its green transition and through restoration of its renewables sector that has been damaged a lot through this unjustified war that Russia has unleashed against Ukraine. Then the scope of the damage is just enormous, and it will take time for Ukraine to restore the energy sector. Accurate data about the actual damage can be obtained only through the technical audits, and rehabilitation of energy infrastructure will require enormous efforts and investments. Yet there is an opportunity to reshape Ukraine's energy sector, and especially its renewable sector, in line with European standards. Ukraine will be given the security assistance tailored to meet its critical needs. And Ukrainian authorities are called to maintain the achievements of the energy market reform and to continue integration into the European Union single market. So I would just like to emphasize that Ukraine's post-war reconstruction of the energy sector should be based largely on the renewable energy sector. And Ukraine has made a significant progress in the renewable sector development in the recent years. But unfortunately, nowadays, a number of the projects have been just put on hold. But with Ukraine obtaining the EU candidacy status, it would contribute to achieving a renewable energy target, which has recently been raised to 25% by 2030 in the National Economic Strategy of Ukraine until 2030. But in order to move on and in order to continue that way, we have to put more attention to to modernizing the sector itself, and also to advancing the electricity market model that we have right now. And in that respect, we have to pay attention to the payment terms for the renewables sector. They should be reviewed. And it is not only just review of the TSO's transmission tariff, which has always been the source of the major payments for the renewables producers. It is also the review of the electricity payment terms, and with a focus to the feed-in premium, which has already been elaborated even before the war has started in Ukraine. It is also better storage opportunities, and the respective law has been put in place. And so there is a lot of opportunities in that direction too. There's also the need to increase also the rooftop stations in Ukraine. And it is according to the State Efficiency Agency, in 2021, the number of those has increased to 44,888, which is a real contribution to the development of the renewables sector. It is also revitalization of the energy sector using the new technologies. And this would be also more available thanks to our international partners' support. And of course, the certificates of origin, and there have been so many details given today throughout this discussion. And I have to emphasize that the experts are extremely important for renewable electricity producers, which are virtually non-existent due to the constant dispatch disconnections and also to the falling consumption. Speaking about the green transition, I would like also to say a few words that, the war or Russian invasion to Ukraine has also influenced greatly or affected the carbon neutrality and also renewable energy policies in Europe. While the repower of EU, this powerful strategy is a longer-term commitment to phase out the fossil fuels and boosting renewables, there are also signs that some European countries are reconsidering their decision to shut down their nuclear plants, Germany, for instance, or their gas fields like Netherlands, and others are also contemplating a lower than planned phase out of coal-powered energy, like Great Britain and Germany. Simultaneously, the EU members states are boosting the solar and wind energy projects. And I'm talking about Germany, about Denmark, and a lot of other European countries. For Ukraine, green transition was one of the priorities before the war, but Russian aggression has made this approach even more urgent. So together with our European partners, after the necessary technical audit, we will be able to move forward and will be able to advance our renewable sector to a significantly more qualitative level. That was short remarks, and thank you for your attention.
They were short and they were weighty on our thoughts, and thank you for sharing your time and thoughts with us. Dear colleagues, I think that we have exhausted the list of those who wanted to speak, and as we are approaching the set time limit, unless anyone has an absolutely urgent question or remark.
Yes, if I may.
Yes,
this is
please.
Andriy speaking from EIF, European Industrial Insulation Foundation. I'm today in Antwerp at the ECEEE Zero Decarbonisation Conference. And just a very small remark to be added to my speaker before. Here at ECEEE, we talk about energy efficiency. And of course, we have seen that energy efficiency also is high on the agenda. And as previous speakers said about the renewables, they need to come together. So it's just to make this last point at the end of your conference, and me sorry that I could not participate the entire time because there's actually the conference going on in parallel. But in rebuilding things newly up, renovating or restructuring what has been destroyed, building new projects, this is a big opportunity also to do it right from an energy efficiency perspective. And looking at the high energy prices, we see, just to give you one energy efficiency technology example, for technical insulation, which you would put on pipes, vessels, when you transport steam from A to B, the amortization payback times for these kind of measures have become less than 1 year. And are economically feasible, and let's say to use this opportunity of a new start, which of course is forced, it's hard to bear, but it's like this. This is an opportunity really to say rebuild, but rebuild energy efficiently, so that the energy coming from renewables the energy we don't consume, of course, is the best, is not forgotten in the overall mosaic picture of what needs to be done. But I don't want to take more time of it, but I think that's an important aspect not to forget.
Thank you very much for thinking of it and for taking your time from another important conference to be with us. For me, this means that Ukraine counts. And
Absolutely.
Of course, we also count on your support and your understanding. I think that the discussion was brisk and efficient, but I would like the specialists to tell us this. And the specialist I mean is, of course, Valerii Bezus, head of the State Agency for Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving. Closing remarks from you, Mr. Bezus.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to address Mr. Andreas. In half an hour, we have a separate discussion on energy efficiency issues, so you can join us, and we will go there deeply, much more deeply, because surely it's a different issue and different method to discuss and to discuss more thoroughly. Anyway, thank you for your remarks, and hope to see you at the next panel. And again, dear colleagues, I want to thank you a lot for your for sharing your knowledge, your experiences, your views on the issue of renewables development, and more focused on the guarantees of origin mechanism. Of course, we are in Ukraine, have a lot of front lines to fight for our future, and this is one of those important front lines on having a clear view on how to develop our energy system and our economy. Addressing several remarks, I would like to address a call from Nadiya Petruchenko about the roadmap, which actually from the agency was presented a year ago. And I want to underline that we are quite reasonable assessing the timing, because now we have a year and a half to come to the actual starting point of using the mechanism of the platform for guarantees of origin. Actually, a year ago, we heard a lot of voices calling for and even taking responsibilities for developing such a mechanism in half a year. And just a rhetorical question on where are those voices and where are those mechanisms. I want to express my sincere gratitude to our colleagues from Energy Community Secretariat. Indeed, we are grateful for your openness and for your support and for your work in establishing this regional hub. It's very important for us to have this opportunity to come with our guarantees of origin, and to at least to play with it in this maybe a bit limited but still open market. And of course, thank you for this opportunity with the Grexel and this mechanism that you open it to us to use it in a trial period for a year. It's quite a unique opportunity for us. Unfortunately, we couldn't start to use this opportunity because unexpectedly we had emerged an internal discussion in Ukraine on what body should be responsible for the movement on development and the guarantees of origin mechanism. I hope this discussion will proceed with a good result, and we'll have this opportunity, hopefully we'll have this window of opportunity to use this trial period and to try this nice product and to see the perspectives of using it in Ukraine. Again, and maybe one remark from the call from Oleg Dobrovolsky. I thank you for your mentioning the important issue that unfortunately we have in Ukraine this misunderstanding, and around this misunderstanding a lot of speculations and even manipulations in Ukraine already, that having any mechanism working somehow mechanism in Ukraine and having this guarantees of origin, we already can get a huge flow of money in Ukraine. It's not working this way. We can understand it, and of course we need to proceed thoroughly with a good and sound and trustworthy mechanism, and not wasting your time, dear colleagues, anymore. I would like to resume and to thank you all for your support, and hopefully we can count on you without further ado. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bezus, and thank you all the participants. And I remind that the next discussion will be more about energy efficiency, and probably I repeat the invitation to Mr. Gertia to take part in it. And before we adjourn, I remind you that on the 24th of November, the energy community, the Ukrainian Energy Association, the Ukrainian Energy Exchange, and the Association of Gas Traders of Ukraine, as well as the All Ukrainian Energy Assembly, are holding the charity auction with 4 exclusive lots. And all the proceeds from the auction will go to the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. United we stand, we shall withstand, we shall overcome. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
The comprehensive automation of processes and sequences within the sectors is a fundamental requirement for intelligent energy management. But in automation, things are similar to the Tower of Babel. Everybody works on one project and has the same objective, but everybody programs in their own language. This is where PLC Next technology from Phoenix Contact comes in. An open control platform on which you can work together in several languages on one automation project. PLC Next technology is a complete ecosystem. Regardless of the hardware and programming languages, it makes the collective intelligence of both IT and OT specialists available for tailored automation solutions.